So this is an image of the mannequin that we're going to be drawing today, and I want to give you some proportions. So one thing I want to say is that it's difficult to take images with an iPhone that are not a little bit distorted. And when I look at this mannequin, I can see the head looks a little too big, but it's not so far off that we can't use it. So what I want to point out here is that I have a couple of guides. I have one at the bottom of the head, and then I have one right at the midpoint of the figure, which is at the base of the hips. I also have some layers that have some images on them, and just need to turn these on. So you can see that I've got these red lines that show me different widths and heights of things. So I'm going to go ahead and turn most of these off here. So here is the head. This is the measurement of the top to the bottom of the head. And here's the same measurement compared to the width of the head. So you can see that the width of the head is about, say, 2/3 of the height of the head. So again, that's proportion. You're measuring one thing against another. Here's the torso, and the torso is taller than the head. It's actually, in real life, and not in pictures, it's a little bit more. I would say it's about 1 1/4 as tall as the head. Here it shows a little less than that. The width is just about perfectly 1 head wide. So that's the height of the head is exactly the same as the width of the torso. And then our hips, notice the hips are shorter than the head by a little bit. In this image, the bottom actually comes down to where the ball joints start, or actually where they meet the legs. So these are the major shapes here in the middle of the figure. I didn't do the arms and legs, but one thing I usually do with them, rather than measure everything this way, I'll use alignment. So notice how, for example, the elbows line up just below, the center of the elbows is just below the top of the hips. And if you look at the bottom of the hands, they're just slightly below the middle of the hips. Again, these would be slightly adjusted depending on what you actually see, but that's very close to what where they would be. I think the problem with this image is that the camera is tilted slightly down on it. But you'd be amazed at how much those little distortions the phone will pick up and magnify. So one thing about the legs is that they make up half the height of the figure. That's starting with the ball joints and going down to the bottom of the feet. The bottom of the feet would be right about here. That little extra toe is just because that's bent down a little bit. So that's the proportions of the figure, and this will be important when we draw the figure in our next exercise.